Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the February 15th Supplemental Retirement Board of Trustees meeting of the Audit Subcommittee. This meeting is being recorded. We have some people joining us virtually, and before we get started, we'll call the roll.
Treasurer Falwell.
Here.
Melinda Barron.
Here.
Steve Bean.
Here.
Isabella Thomas.
Present.
All right. We have a quorum. Shavella Thomas, I'd like to welcome you as the newest member of the Audit Subcommittee. All of us know Shavella as a very important member of our board, but she's been offered to fill the open position on the subcommittee that was created when Michael Lewis's board term expired last year. And as chair of the board, I appointed Shavella to the Audit Subcommittee, and we welcome you to that.
Thank
There'll
you.
be a public comment section for organizations and individuals to address the committee. And continuing with our department's initiative to increase government transparency, the department established policy recording audio and video of official public meetings like this one. This is an effort made to increase transparency and accessibility of public meetings that fall under the authority of the Department of State Treasurer. And because some committee meetings are meeting us by phone, just be reminded to put your phone or your Zoom on mute when you're not speaking. When you are speaking, be sure to say who you are. If you have to leave the meeting for any purpose, please notify us so that we can record that in minutes as well as your return. Any communication that is had during this meeting that involved this meeting on a personal device could be deemed as public record. With that, I'd like for everybody to stand and join us for our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I salute the North Carolina flag. I salute the flag of North Carolina and pledge to the old North State love, loyalty, and faith. You're not going to win any contest for that harmony, folks. So with that, to make you aware of our ethics policy, members, you've seen our agenda. Does anyone have a conflict regarding the agenda items that are before us? Hearing none, should a conflict arise during our proceedings today, please notify us of our conflict so that we can deal with that. Now we're, I guess, to the ready to go. The 2022 audit entrance presentation. We're joined by Thomas Ray. Thomas, where'd you come from today?
Baltimore, Maryland.
Where are you going to?
Going back. I'm going to go to the beach right now.
You don't have to be embarrassed.
I'm actually excited.
Spending money down there?
Absolutely.
Oh, great. All right. So welcome, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer and subcommittee members. Again, Thomas Ray, partner, UHY. We are your new financial statement auditors for this coming year.
And by the way, the fact he's going to the beach should not be put in the public record. You know how in demand all people like him are. We don't want a posse out there after we got paparazzi. Go ahead.
So my agenda for today is just kind of reintroduce myself and the team and who UHY is. A reminder about our industry experience. Again, also go over the scope of this particular engagement, the methodology that we'll use in executing on the engagement. And then lastly, but equally as important, every financial statement audit, there's fraud risk assessment, SAS 99. And this is just a good opportunity to get in front of the treasurer and the subcommittee members and just talk about reminding you of your fiduciary duties and any risks that you may think about as it pertains to this particular plan, and also just remind you that myself and the entire team are available throughout the year, so it's not just today's meeting. Be contacted anytime regarding any questions or concerns about the audit. So who is UHY? It's a top 30 accounting firm in the country, 32 locations around the country, over 1,500 employees, but probably most specific and important to the trustees and the subcommittee is that this is going to be led by a group of governmental retirement plan team. So the team that we're utilizing spends probably 95% of their billable hours working with defined benefits systems and defined contribution plans in the state and local government space. So moving to that next slide again, just a little more industry experience specific to that team. 20 years serving governmental defined benefit, deferred compensation plans and investment trusts. Created a sub niche dedicated to these governmental plans. As I said, the proposed team conducts over 30 state and local government retirement plan audits and experience with all kinds of investment portfolios. Next slide is again just a little snapshot of that team's experience with plans around the country. You can move to the next slide, Patty. So just getting into what the scope of the engagement, it is to perform an audit of the North Carolina supplemental retirement plans, the 401k and the 457 financial statements for 2022 under generally accepted audit standards and GAAP. The primary objective of our audit is to express an opinion on the fair presentation of the statements. We do plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable but not absolute assurance about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatements, whether caused by error or fraud. Another good reminder is that these are your financial statements. They're the plan's financial statements. Our primary responsibility is to issue an opinion on the fair presentation of those. And we're looking forward to working with staff as they put together the financial statements and we basically validate those financial statements and all the underlying disclosures and footnotes. And then finally, again, as I mentioned, just to serve as a resource throughout the year. One thing that I didn't put into my presentation, I noticed last night, in addition to the financial statement audit, part of the contract and the scope is we also do employer testing around the state. That's typically on a cycled basis. We do some of the larger employers on an annual basis, and then we rotate about 15 of the employers. So that's also ongoing as part of, or even as an aside to the financial statement audit. But again, a good check and a good use of resources from trustees. That way we're validating that input coming from those employers all around the state and how that's being remitted to Empower. So next slide is really just kind of a refresher on the methodology. So the Taylor approach, this shows 4 phases. We like to typically look at it in 2 phases. So phase 1 and phase 2 are what we call preliminary field work. Typically we come in before year end, do all of our testing around walkthroughs and understanding of controls, tests of controls. And then obviously phase 3 and 4 is what we call substantive procedures or final field work. That's after year end, where we're validating the actual financial statements, the underlying general ledger that builds out those financial statements and all the disclosures that are in those financial statements. So the next slide is really just a discussion of that first 2 phases, if you will, that internal control. We obtain an in-depth understanding of all the key processes of the entity, which also includes Empower's processes in and around their record-keeping duties, and we get their SOC 1 reports and validate them and the controls that are in place there. Based on that understanding, we develop a risk-based audit approach to effectively reduce that audit risk to an acceptably low level. We perform tests of design of key processes identified, perform tests of effectiveness over contributions, distributions, and that at the participant level, the employer accounts or employee accounts or participant accounts. We do, as I mentioned, perform those employer audits where we're validating the remittance of the contributions to Empower, the timeliness of those remittances, that they did not exceed IRS limitations, and that the participant data that's reported to Empower is complete and accurate. Next slide is really that phase 3 and 4, or what I call the final field work, where we're essentially validating those key risk areas for a defined contribution plan, such as this. We're focusing on the investments, the contributions or the inflows, any distributions, and the administrative expenses. For the investments, we're sending out confirmations, validating with Empower, BNY, and the investment managers that you work with. We're doing price testing, using Bloomberg terminals and other resources, analytical procedures over the investment and the interest income and expenses. On the contribution side, we are confirming contributions with a sample of employers in addition to those 20 employers that we're working with. Do analytical procedures over those contributions and a reconciliation of the entire contribution detail to that general ledger trial balance. On the distribution side, or your outflows, primarily analytical procedures, and again, a reconciliation of all of those distributions as they roll up into the detailed trial balance general ledger. And then also doing analytical procedures over the administrative expenses of the plan. Any questions on the audit approach before we talk about the rest of my presentation about fiduciary duties? Any questions on the approach itself?
Questions from board members?
Yes.
Hearing none,
Okay.
proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so the next slide is really just another refresher about the trustee fiduciary duties, the duty of loyalty, duty of care, duty of prudence. It's always nice to have an audit subcommittee. A lot of my clients in this space, in the deferred comp space, don't necessarily have an active audit committee. So it's always nice to have that around accountability and transparency, the presence of which of an effective audit committee encourages staff to increase their level of care in preparing those financial statements. The presence of the audit committee can result in staff being more attentive in how money is spent by reviewing the system's spending patterns. The committee can put more focus on risk management and internal controls. It does provide another set of eyes and just enhances the overall credibility around transparency and accountability. Also, we assess the annual audit implications and approve action plans to strengthen performance, establish and monitor the system to ensure that the organization is in compliance with all relevant financial laws and regulations, approve non-routine contractual obligations, and establish other risk management mechanisms. So we slide down a few more slides. This is really where I'll open it up again to the subcommittee about any current views around the fraud risks, anything keeping any of the members up at night in relation to the financial statement audit.
Questions? Hearing none, proceed.
Hey, 1 second. Can I ask one?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is Steve, and this may not be as relevant, but I'm just curious, Thomas. This whole, when you mentioned fraud, this whole FTX debacle we've just recently been going through, other than them not having an official audit of their operations, is there anything that you've seen in that a takeaway that would be relevant at all to a plan like ours?
So a plan like yours, I'd say what I do at the investment trust or at a defined benefit, if there was direct investment in FTX, obviously what we would do is not only those financial statements that you mentioned or lack thereof or a financial audit, but really then what the investment staff is doing around the due diligence of that particular manager, whether FTX or any manager, private equity, et cetera. So what we like to do is look at all the due diligence that goes into hiring that manager, what went into it, who kicked the tires, visits around valuation, existence, and then obviously the ongoing due diligence. And part of that due diligence, to your question, Steve, is the financial statement audit, who does the audit, whether it's GAAP, it's who's looking at it, et cetera. So outside of just robust due diligence, one item of which is the financial statement audit, not much more. I don't know if I answered your question.
Thank you. That's good. Thank you.
See,
Well, Mr. Treasurer, again, that was pretty much, that's the presentation. Again, I'm really just happy to answer any questions or talk about anything as it relates to the audit. And we're looking forward to kicking things off and getting the process started.
I got a question for you, Tom. So when we get to the employer portion, will you guys look at maybe what we've done in the past and trying to determine who you're going to pick so that we don't double up on somebody who might have just been done last year or the year before?
Absolutely. So we are very conscious of that, particularly at some of the smaller employers. So we're not necessarily, we'll have those discussions annually, Jeff, just to say, well, maybe we do want to continue to focus on some of the bigger ones or some of the problem ones, but everybody else will be on a cycle basis.
Right.
So we would make sure that, again, if we did anyone in the last 4 or 5 years, we're only going to, they would be excluded from the population the next year, and we'd only try to select ones that hadn't been picked in previous years.
One more question. If you can, Thomas, this is Steve again. Is there anything you're doing different from the previous firm regarding policies or procedures? Have you made any particular change at all?
Steve, I was with the previous firm, so again, the basic approach will be probably very similar. Then again, always looking to refine, enhance the process around policies and procedures. So that's an ongoing goal, is to improve that.
I think the question might have been, since coming to the new firm, have you made any changes?
Okay, well, again,
Right,
yeah. Most of the team, I apologize, and Steve, most of the team from the old firm has joined me. There will be some changes to the team, but again, the basic approach, particularly for this one, Steve, is going to be probably very similar and hopefully seamless for staff.
Okay,
Other questions?
thank you.
Would you say in all your scope of work that this is one of the easier ones to do?
I will say that it certainly is helpful to have the staff that you have. There are actually large plans around the country that don't have a finance staff behind the scenes, and a lot of the financial statements that are ultimately derived or delivered even by us are really kind of compiled at the record keeper, and with assistance from the auditor. So to your point, Mr. Treasurer, definitely a pleasure to work with you and your staff. It does make things a lot easier when it comes to the financial reporting. It's something to be proud of, I think, and certainly something to put the subcommittee members' mind at ease in terms of an additional set of eyes and the controls that are in place around financial reporting.
Shouldn't you charge us less since it's easier?
I hope I did, but sure.
I'm sorry, you stuttered. Did you say sure?
Maybe.
All right.
We'll see how this one goes.
I like sure better, maybe. All right. Well, we hope you have a good restful time in North Carolina. Any other board members who have any questions? We do have a public comment section. Did anybody sign up for public comments? Been enough public comments in this room today. So we do hereby deem the public comments section closed. Before we ask for a motion to adjourn, does any board members have anything they'd like to add?
This is Melinda. Move to adjourn.
I'll second that. Steve?
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Treasurer Falwell,
Aye.
Shabella Thomas,
Aye.
we are adjourned.
Next meeting,
Is that it?
next meeting.
That's it.
Thursday, February 23rd.
Oh, 2, 3.
This is the audit subcommittee.
Oh, next meeting, sorry. Next, I gotta follow the rules here. Next, the date of the next Board of Trustees meeting, the full board, is February 23rd at 9 a.m. And that's the only meeting announcement that I have written in front of me. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.